FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by Pimax. Check out their Pimax Crystal Light right now for some of the best VR headsets available today.
Cool. So we are Fly-by-Wire Simulations. What do? We create free and open source development or products for everybody to use. So we're not just building add-ons, we're building systems that others can use as well. What is free and open source? I'm not going to read the whole definition. You can read it on your own. But basically it's software that we make available to everybody for free, but also give the source code of that software to everybody to use, right? So there's a lot of other platforms that are using our systems as well. Like the Headwind, for instance, is using our platforms, our systems. And what that does for us is it builds a community. We want to build a community around open source and free add-ons for Microsoft flight simulators. It's a collaborative environment. We are all volunteers. We're having fun. We're working together because we enjoy this. We don't necessarily need to work in a corporate environment. Finally, it allows us also for rapid innovation because there's so many members watching this source code. They can quickly add new features, and we can evolve very quickly. It might not always look like that, but it really is like that. And then, now I'm definitely in the way. It's a learning experience for everybody in the team. We have a lot of people who are studying to be computer scientists or studying to be part of aviation. This gives them a lot of expertise and experience to working in a larger team, to working together on a large code base. So it's beneficial for everybody. Finally, I think this is not a secret. The projects we're working on are, of course, the A320X, which we've been working on for a while. That's available. But, of course, also the A380. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But it's not the only thing we do. We also do a lot of other stuff. We have our installer. We have other tools available. We have Discord bots. We build a whole API that's available for you to use as an open source developer. And then finally, just an overview slide. We have more than 90,000 members in our community. There's over 200, and I think by now over 250 people that have contributed code to our systems. And yeah, the other stuff is code stuff. A lot of stuff is happening, right? And I'll show you this slide, and then we can jump into the video in about 5 seconds. Those are QR codes. We'll show them at the end again. But with that, what we're going to do now is we're going to show you a video of the A380, and we're going to show it as a live flight from San Francisco to Los Angeles, from a cold and dark startup all the way to a landing and a taxi to the gate. And we're going to give live commentating from the team. It's going to be a little ad hoc, a little random, a little improvised, so don't worry if there's like a silence. If you want to raise your hand and ask a question, you can do so, except for the when question. Somebody already highlighted that I'm allowed to do something that I'm not going to repeat because that's dangerous, but appreciate it. So with that, let's start that video, put it on the screen, and let's go.
FS Elite at FlightSimExpo 2024 is proudly brought to you by Simbit World's A Pilot's Life Chapter 2. Check it out now on SimMarket and also on Contrail.
We're going to look at our screen from time to time. This is the new view that you have, or the new livery that was created by Mike, our modeler. The whole video was created by Mike. Big shout out to him because it's an amazing effort that he did. And so this is in San Francisco, I think one of the latest sceneries that came out recently. We'll be jumping in the cockpit. So right now we're walking into the cockpit, and this is what it looks like if you go up close and start using it. If you want to see this in person, our booth, you can start using that. So now we're going to start the batteries, but I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in. Later on, I'll think other people will jump in. So we're using the batteries. There's 4 batteries in this system. It's a lot more heavy than an A320. It's a lot bigger. And we'll start the APU, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
People will correct me if I'm wrong. And we're messing around a little bit with lighting because, got to look good. So now we're going to jump into...
You hear some relays clicking, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, if the sound works, which it's probably a little quiet, but Boris can talk a bit about the sound maybe.
Yes, as I was going to mention, currently the APU is starting, and I think he will show an outside shot of it in a second. Right now setting up all the lighting. And the APU, we got a recording from a walk around as well. One of our pilots sent it to us, so big thanks to him. So we put that into the sim. Yes, right now you can hear some DU fans going on from the DC bus. That's, okay, so there we go. So that's the AC power now on. Yeah. And you can hear some of the motors, which I'm still not sure what it is, but in all of the Golden North startups you hear that little motor noise. So now we're also hearing a lot of clicking noises, which is the lights themselves. The lights and the push buttons turning on and off as some of their tests. You can hear some of the master cautions going on from the systems that are when they're powering up.
And I think at this point we're going to be jumping into all of the ECAM pages. So you will be seeing on the top window that there will be some ECAM pages there. I'm just checking out if people are looking at us. All good? Awesome. So yes, we're going to go over ECAM pages. We have fuel. We are now showing the hydraulics. We're jumping into the that's the flight control panel. Yes, and then a few others.
Electric.
I can't really read it from here.
Yeah, so that's the doors. So now we're jumping into the electric DC and that APU. So the APU should say available, which means that we can now start using the aircraft, start setting things up.
You can also see N1 and N2 in the APU as 2 turbines in it.
Oh yeah, that's true. The APU has 2 turbines, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah, now the APU bleed gets on, so the packs can work, so air conditioning.
ADIRS. So ADIRS is for your the IRS system alignment, making sure that every system is aware where it's located in the world. It is based on GPS, but also other measurements and locations that you fill into the FCU or the MCU to make sure that things are properly functional. And the aircraft always is aware where it is in the world. We're doing something with the passengers lighting and with the outside lighting right now. So go ahead.
So I was also mentioned what the MCU is.
Oh yeah, maybe you should do that. Yeah?
I was going to say, is that the MCDU replacement as well?
Yes, indeed. So MCU is the new name in the A380 for MCDU. So in the A320, it's called MCDU. In the A380, it's MCDU. MCU? People are making signs to me. I don't know what that means. So we also want to show something. It's our own complete model, right? We created this model from scratch. Our team has done a hard job with this. But that also means that we could create all of these solar panels or solar protection screens.
Sun visors.
Sun visors. See, some people are smarter than me. I'm sorry about that. And so that allows us to do everything we did. And we modeled this through the real aircraft. We did hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures, if not thousands of pictures, and scans with like your phone, 3D scanning the cockpit. So we had a lot of information there. And
now I think the flight plan is coming.
We're going to start working on the radios first, I think, if
radios,
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So this is a brand new addition that we added on Monday. So this video was recorded on Thursday. And this is a brand new addition that we added on Monday is the radio panels. That was not implemented yet, which is a crucial component if you want to be flying it on a VATSIM network, for instance. Right? Typically you start entering it like you would normally do in your MCDU. You enter your value, you commit it to the standby, and then you can switch the standby to the active.
Oh yeah, and I was going to mention, for release of this aircraft, we want this aircraft to be able to do a flight on VATSIM from A to B, and so this is a huge step in that direction.
Yeah, it's not the only criteria before people are going to wonder, oh, you got the radios, now you're done. We're not done. But it is one of the big criteria for sure, is that we can do an A to B flight on VATSIM or on any online ATC network of your choice. Here. So now we're getting to the MCU and programming the MCU, and I think, Katie, you wanted to talk a little bit about that?
So pretty much, it's not that it's necessarily super different from the A320 because it's all going to be Airbus, so it generally follows the same philosophy, but the MCU on the A380 is pretty much a touchscreen. So basically everything is clickable, and you have to select each box individually. And we're going to go to the EFB, which is ported, not ported, but it is very, very similar to the one in the A320, and it even uses, I think, most of the same code.
So it reviews the route.
Yep.
So yeah, this is the route that you can see. Basically, you can import from SimBrief like we had on the A320, right? In this case, we're showing the OFP. It's a flight plan from San Francisco to Las Vegas, which, if I'm not mistaken, would be the Wesla 5 departure, and then the Intel transition, Q174 airway, Fletcher, and then Cocktail 3 arrival.
I would also mention that the MCU is not just touchscreen, but it also can be controlled by a trackball and the keyboard that's kind of below the display. And in the sim, obviously, so it's easier. You can use your mouse and kind of use it as a touchscreen, essentially.
Yeah, so you can use the touchscreen. You can also type it yourself on your own keyboard. So you can click on a field, and you'll see that later, and we can type in our own keyboard the entry that you want to have there. You can type it on the keyboard in the cockpit, or you can type it manually. So now we're connecting, or maybe Katie, we took over from you, so continue if you want to talk about the EFB a little bit and talk about the MCU.
It's not too different from the one in the A320, but pretty much we've changed all the graphics to make sure they represent the A380. We've changed all the data in the About page and the information pages so they accurately represent the A380. The passenger fill-up page uses the A380's layout for the people.
Here we got a full flight.
Yep, we have a full flight. We have put the speed of boarding to fast, because otherwise we would be sitting here quite a while. So to speed up a little bit that boarding, you can select instant, you can select fast, or you can select real time. Real time is going to take you 40 minutes to board the entire plane, or 30 minutes to do a full load out. So we're not waiting for that.
Yeah, and currently it's the lower deck that fills up first, but then we'll make the first class, usually, how you have boarding groups, so that will be, we'll make that change so that fills up first.
Yeah, Katie?
Oh, yes. And right now he's inserting the basic init page, which basically tells the aircraft where you're going to be going to and from, and basically the general gist of your flight. And then he should be moving into the, is that flight plan?
Yeah, so here we're first verifying that the IRS was all aligned, so the aiders did their job. And we also imported the MCU flight plan from SimBrief, right? Again, it's all integrated.
Yes, and then he goes into check the flight plan to make sure that it's all correct. And you have to set up the departures because typically they don't get imported from SimBrief, because on a general takeoff, you would have the departures and the arrivals given to you via ATC. So it would actually be unrealistic behavior for it to automatically populate that data.
It's really curious how in this system, it looks completely different, but all of the heart of it is still very similar to the A320. You got your init pages, you got your route pages, you got very similar flight planning the way it goes. So Airbus, as you know, the philosophy is to keep it as similar as possible between all the aircraft types.
Yeah, and he's going to insert an arrival, I believe. Yes.
Yep.
Which it seems like he's going for 26 left at 26 right. Apologies. Oh, did somebody pause it?
Oh, did I do something wrong? Sorry.
Oh, no, it's good.
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Sorry about that.
Yes. So they are going to use 26 right and the ILS approach, which, yes, our A380 has full ILS support, just like the A320. And has the autoland been implemented yet?
No, the autoland has not been fully implemented yet, as far as I know. You'll see a landing today, of course. The landing will not be an autoland because we want to show that our pilots can actually fly the thing very, very well. Mike likes to show off his skills. He's really passionate about it.
I believe in the trailer that we showed up at FS Weekend, it might have been an autoland. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's implemented, but it's not tuned yet, so
Okay.
I didn't have my hands on that yet.
So the other thing that's pretty cool, and I don't know if it showed up yet, but the flight plan also includes the go-around procedure now. So that's something that we hadn't, we didn't have in the A320 yet until recently. We introduced the FMS V2, which is the second version of our flight management system. That puts the groundwork in place for a lot of more newer features, including the go-around procedure.
And also alternate flight plan.
Alternate flight plans, RMP approaches, things like that.
It's very helpful because it kind of reworked the whole structure of it, which unblocks a lot of the A380 stuff as well.
Yep. So this is how we as a team try to optimize everything that we do. We make sure that whatever we develop for one platform can be reused on another platform.
Oh, here's
this
a
is really
showcase.
cool.
Yeah,
Brady,
this is a showcase of OWNs, which I believe uses Navigraph data? Question mark?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It uses Navigraph data in order to basically fetch the, it uses a specific database, and it will display a image of the taxiways and like your gates, and basically gives you information about your surroundings at a very local level.
Yeah, and as you can see, it localizes the plane on the right taxiway, on the right gate as well, so you can use it for taxiing as well to figure out where am I going. You no longer have to like go to the EFB necessarily.
This reminds me of, if you've flown GA, if you've flown the more modern GA aircraft, such as Cirrus, for example, or anything with a G1000, there's a feature on it called Garmin Safe Taxi, where you can zoom in really close and see every taxiway. This is kind of similar to it, but it's from 2005.
Yeah. So I think we're now going to be filling in the performance page, or yeah, Andreas, if you want to jump in, or go ahead. Look, that's fine. So the performance page again, we have to fill in, of course, the zero fuel weight, the zero fuel center of gravity, so that the computer can calculate the optimal speeds that it needs for takeoff. Because you also have to fill in, of course, the amount of fuel you have. But yeah, Katie, I don't want to take away too much here.
It's okay. So it's going to be almost exactly the same as the A320, because they all use the same underlying systems and general principles in order to make sure that it's not a super hard time trying to transfer between different planes. If you have consistency between the planes, it basically makes it so the training that you actually need to fly the plane is really more about flying the plane itself rather than trying to learn its systems.
It's quite light today, the A380.
Yeah.
So it's not so heavyweight, so it can get up to 575. As far as I know, yeah,
right.
make maximum takeoff weight, and so we are in the 370 area, so it's quite light. So the takeoff will be quite fast. Yeah.
Yeah, and here we're doing a little shout out to our SimBrief friends who have released a performance calculator.
Yeah.
Now it's not fully qualified or working with the A380 yet, so you will see some numbers here. We're going to add 20 to that number because the calculations are not on point yet. So we have to go a little faster than they think we have to go. But yeah, it's going to do a calculation for the right runway. It will figure out what the length is. And you'll see a nice graphic that shows you what the distance is going to be and what it needs to be.
Quite fast for a heavy plane, right, to go up. So
yeah, it's not entirely correct yet for the A380. We have to build a profile for SimBrief specifically for that. We're working towards that. We already have one for the A320. The A380 is we have a profile, but it's not fully tweaked yet for this.
So, but what you also see here, so this performance page includes a little bit more information than on A320. So, for example, having packs on or off, that's something you don't put into the A320. In the A380, you have this information. So, it's good for reference, of course, and you can check what was your initial planning. Okay, you had the packs on or off, and if you do the recheck, you can say, okay, it matches what we calculated, right?
Yeah. Because it becomes important to know, right, your performance of your engines is affected by the fact whether it has to give power to your air conditioning and stuff like that. So sometimes in certain situations, a pilot might need to disable the packs to get enough performance out of the engines.
That's right, because it uses the air from the compressor, I think, to power those packs.
Right. And I mean, with the A380, usually from the airports you're taking off or landing, the chance that you quite limited in performance is quite higher than on the A320, right? So if you're on the A320 and you take off on a 4,000 meter runway, I mean, performance is not really an issue, right? So you flex a lot and put the performance of the engines down.
So Mike is going to be showing off the pushback system that we have included on the EFB. This is going to be quite similar to the A320 because the EFBs actually, we didn't need to change very much in order to get it to work because we specifically designed it so that it would be able to work with multiple planes, because by the time we started the EFB, we'd already conceptualized the A380 and knew that we were going to have to make it compatible at some point.
And again, sorry.
Yeah, no, you can continue.
Yeah, so I was going to add something there. I spoke in the beginning about us developing systems for other vendors or other groups. This allows other groups to also quickly take the EFB and use it for their own platforms, like the Headwind A330, for instance.
Yeah, I think Headwind, Horizon uses our EFB.
There's a few others, yeah.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few others that use our EFB.
And as you might have seen, just to highlight, you might have seen I was turning on all the fuel pumps. There's a lot of fuel pumps on an A380.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he just finishes the before start checklist items, kind of. So Pushback is about to start, release parking brake, and then you will see 2 engines at a time to be started.
And for this, I'd like the sound to be turned up a little bit so I can demonstrate this. Essentially, as you start 2 engines, the Trent 900 engine has a very, I would say strange but very iconic startup where you'll be hearing the pneumatic air spinning the turbine for the startup. And then when the fuel is introduced, you get a very loud, bassy noise that disappears towards the end into a very quiet idle. But yes, so this will happen momentarily as we push back.
Also, there's going to be an outside view, so you're getting a lot of noise on that one as well.
You hear the loud APU on that, yes.
So enjoy.
But yeah, you'll also notice that this video will be released on YouTube as well as a full video, so you can listen to the sounds there a little bit more accurately than here in an exhibit hall where there's a lot of noise around you. But know that there's a lot of effort in those sounds, and Boris is the one that has done all of that work.
Hey, to be fair, the people talking, it's like an airplane.
Yes. So this is also really cool at the OANS system. You can see us taxiing, and you see the map moving.
Yeah, now you're hearing that APU, that loud APU in the back.
But the switch, engine start switch, is on the overhead and not below.
Kind of like a Boeing.
So now.
Let's listen to those engines.
Yes. That bass you're hearing is the fuel being introduced. Disappears into a nice and quiet idle.
So now 3 and 4.
We're starting 3 and 4 right now?
Yeah, we're starting 3 and 4 right now. So this is also highlighted with brackets around the engine, which one is being started at the top, ECAM. So it's easy to identify what's started. And then at some point it will show a veil.
There you hear that bass again from the 2 starting, and you hear them from both engines. So you kind of hear it resonate between the 2 because it's a really similar frequency.
Waiting on getting the engines up and running, making them available, and then start. The next step, of course, is starting taxiing. We did a full startup. I think it took us about 20 minutes to go over all of that, 25 minutes. That's what you can expect in real life as well, I think. It can take a little longer. We didn't skip any steps, but some of the steps we did a little bit faster than you would normally do. Because of course,
you're hearing the slats here. Over the wing you'll hear the loud, iconic A380 flap sound, but here in the cockpit you hear the slat motor only. It's more higher pitched.
So APU is turned off now.
Of course, the engines are running, no more need for the APU. They're providing all the electric power you need and bleed air.
So there's taxi.
You also get to see more of the OANS in action, where you can see the map is like rotating and moving along the path of the airplane and showing a very accurate position as to where it is on the actual airport.
And something you might not fully notice in the audience, but you will see on the 4K video that we'll release, is that on the OANS you have all the taxiways with their numbers, with their letters, all the gate numbers are there. It depends on your zoom level as well, so if you zoom out it will start hiding more information because otherwise it's too cluttered. So it's a very intelligent system. And you'll see it pop up later on when we're doing our approach and landing, which I'm not going to talk about because we're going to keep that surprise a little bit for them. But it comes into play with taxiing there as well, of course. We can, in the meantime, can enjoy the beautiful San Francisco airport. You might know that I am from that area, so I love my San Francisco airport.
With the flight beam scenery, right?
Yeah, it's I think it's a flight beam scenery. So those guys released it a couple of days ago, a week ago. And I think we're going to cut out a few steps in the taxiing, or we're going to speed up a few items here. But in the meantime, I want to highlight again, this is all done by volunteers, all in our spare time. I think, Andreas, you mentioned at some point that you have spent thousands of hours in working on boat projects, right? But this is all of our teams doing all of that time, right? And Boris in sounds probably also thousands of hours recording, processing the sounds, putting them into the sim, making sure they activate at the right time with the right pitch, the right sound, the right volume.
Yeah,
it's so much effort.
I think I have about 5,000 hours on MSFS now. I don't even want to know how much I have on Wise and all the audio software I have.
I think
crazy. Yeah.
Sorry?
It's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, but
What
we're
you
all
put
doing
in
it
there,
because we
yeah.
love it, right?
Yeah,
It's a hobby, it's a passion for
Yeah,
us.
it's a passion.
There's a nice
And there
outside
you
view.
see also a little bit the wing flexing, and we did a video before about that, and you see also the engine itself shaking a little bit. Yeah, that's a pretty cool effect, I would say. Yeah.
We had a man named Davey, who's I would say a mad scientist, Frenchman here, who's done all the wing flex, not only the wing flex but the hydraulics. But here on the wing flex is differently depending on how much fuel's in which tank, as multiple sections of the wing are physics. I think it is physics based. How you've done it, and engines themselves too. So if you add a lot of thrust, the engine nacelle will kind of move up a little bit. And if you're taxiing on a very rough,
And there's one thing we want to highlight here as well. Because of this system knows where you are in the airport, it will tell you you're getting close to a runway. Are you sure you can cross it? Did ATC clear you to cross that runway, right? So you get those warnings, and you'll get that as well once we start taxiing to the departure runway.
Right here again, it's going to show up on the PFD here. It's going to say runway ahead.
And it also says which runway, so you know
on the
exactly.
right side, you see the runway, and there you see runway ahead.
Yeah, I just was going to briefly mention the last part about the wing flex is if you do taxi across smooth pavement versus if you suddenly, for some reason, taxi the A380 on grass, it's going to flex a lot more.
We have a video of that on our YouTube. There's a video on the wing flex.
And maybe something you would see very soon now, I'll tell you up front, because otherwise you might miss it. So when now the takeoff thrust is applied, then you see on the FMA, you see the takeoff modes to engage. And you will see, if you look closely, you will see that it's not just popping up everything, because there's an order that happens in the real plane. So when the right conditions are there, the SRS mode is engaging. And that's important because the SRS mode then triggers the auto thrust to being armed. And then afterwards, for a certain time when these modes are engaged, the runway mode will engage. And it's really about time, right? It's not just that like that. In the real plane, it's triggering. So, and you will see that very soon.
This might be in a
That's
small
pretty cool.
aside, but as you see, we have Navigraph support in this aircraft as well, as mentioned by the OANS and obviously our EFB.
We're collaborating with our good friends at Navigraph over here, so shout out to them as well. Once again, runway ahead on the PFD.
Yeah, indeed. Let's enjoy that beautiful takeoff a little bit. You will see those modes pop up in the PFD as well. It'll take off a little fast. Maybe the lower volume of the video just a little bit, but it takes off really fast because, of course, we're very light on fuel today. We're flying from San Francisco to Vegas, which of course means that it is not as heavy as you would expect.
Yeah, and if you try it at our booth, I think by default the weight is set quite heavy, so that takeoff roll will be a lot longer than it is here. You might have noticed.
Yeah, one thing that was missing now, but I guess we will also add this, is the V1 out, the call. So the A380 does it itself, so the co-pilot doesn't, or the pilot monitoring doesn't need to tell it, the plane does it itself.
Yeah. So yeah, now we're going to fly a standard departure here, which of course is all programmed in, and we will follow diligently, including all the restrictions that are on a departure, making sure we're not breaking any of those. And we'll start turning on the autopilot if not already.
No, it's not yet on.
It's not on. It's not on yet. I forgot. Mike likes to fly manually for a while. Again, showing his skills, how good he is, because he is really good.
It's quite fun to fly it manually. You can try it out at the booth. And I mean, we don't see it now, but it's pretty cool to also see the dance of the ailerons, which is based on the real coefficients that Airbus uses. And that's maybe also something to know. So the reason why the dancing of the ailerons is there is to ensure that the frequencies that are being implied by these ailerons on the structure are managed in a good way, so that it's comfortable for the passengers and it's good for the plane, right? So otherwise, due to the size of the wings, it would be sometimes not so good.
You can hear as we speed up, there's a lot more wind noise since the windshield's getting all of the, drag, all the wind hitting it. And the engines fit out farther in cruise as the wind takes over.
And you can also see here that our performance is pretty good, right? Mike has a nice system, let's be honest, but still we have to work really hard to keep the load on the system very low. Like FPS-wise, we want to keep it comfortable for all of you. One of the things that we're also looking into is having different types of textures, lower quality, very high quality, so that you can select for your platform what's going to work best. Additionally, you can see a lot of decals here, or a lot of dirt on the windows, dirt on all of the controls, because we're simulating something real. We're simulating something that has been flown for thousands of hours potentially. But we will have a clean version as well. Again, having less texture complexity, which helps as well.
Yeah, you can see Mike still flying manually, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah. He is a real airline pilot, so he likes his hand flying. He likes to stay sharp. But it is nice to demonstrate the hand flying characteristics of this aircraft. Speaking of which, a bunch of pilots have told us, for example, the A330 has a lot of, the fly-by-wire system has a lot of fake delay in the response, so it feels heavier. And generally the pilots do not enjoy that as much. So newer, like the A380, for example, it's more nimble to control compared to the A330, which might feel backwards, but it is how it works here.
So now our autopilot is on, and Mike is preparing, I think, or we're now going into a little bit of a speed up for the climb and cruise, because there's not a lot happening right now. Of course, as a pilot, you're constantly monitoring what's happening. You're making sure the systems are okay. You're updating information where it needs to be updated, so you'll see Mike move the mouse around a little bit and do some stuff. But it is really meant to speed up the video and not have you sit here for an hour and a half, which is how long it would have taken otherwise. I mean, if you want to do that, come to our booth and you can fly for an hour.
Well, when it
Well,
releases,
not all
you
of
can
us.
do those 14-hour flights on it yourself.
So we will just see then also an outside view when it's up there. So
Yeah, it's still climbing at the moment,
yeah,
indeed.
it's still climbing.
So again, this highlights as well that our autopilot is on point, right? It keeps track of the speeds. It makes sure it's a constant climbing rate, constant climbing speed, the most optimal path that you can follow, and most efficient path for the engines and fuel burn here in this place. So I think Mike's about to jump into an outside view. Or I think we're settling on our cruising altitude. We're going into cruise, I think.
I think now Altstar engaged. Speed. When I saw it right, it's very dark.
It's a little dark.
But I see the white surrounding.
So now you can see our beautiful plane in the air. This is something, again, if you want to come and see it in person on the sim, for sure, we have it at our booth. But it shows you that we're also working hard on getting that external model and the external visuals working really well. So Mike, again, has been the visual artist together with some other people like Repsol in our team that have been working really hard on this. One of the things they do, and you might notice at the tail end, is you'll see dirt, like realistic dirt of an aircraft flying around where you have streaks of just black soot or black dirt from the engines or oil that just spills. It all happens on every aircraft. If you leave here this weekend flying out of Las Vegas, check your aircraft. Check how dirty the outside of your aircraft is. You'd be surprised how dirty it gets.
Especially the underside.
The other side, sadly, you're not going to be able to see from the gate, but even the side or the windows.
Our model is even so detailed that when I was flying earlier, Boris turned off all my engines, and the RAT came out, which is fully modeled and simulated as well, which is the emergency power unit. So if you lose all power in the plane, if your plane is still moving in the air, it is able to generate enough power in order to stay active, and enough power so you can restart the APU and continue to start your engines again.
It's a sort of a wind generator, like a wind turbine, but you're using the speed of the aircraft as the airflow for it.
And now Mike is setting up for the arrival, so he's setting up all the information like the pressure, altimeter, and the winds, temperature on the arrival on Las Vegas to make sure that, again, the FMS knows what to calculate into approach speeds and kind of flap settings, etc. Here again, I think, did we see the announcement of what we're going to do? So here we're going to load OANS again, and in this case, we're going to use it for BTV. And BTV stands for brake to vacate. We're basically going to tell the plane, you are going to auto brake, but we want you to be at a comfortable speed to exit the runway at this taxiway. And it's going to take care of braking automatically for you. Again, the same person that built the wing flexing functionality is the same person that built the BTV site. He's a math genius, and he built all of these formulas in there. And he has verified this with real pilots of the Airbus A380 to say that this is really realistic of how it happens. So, like, the brake intensity will change based on where it is on the runway and the weather situations, etc.
Yeah, so as you might imagine how BTV works is you would think that it might have a constant deceleration rate to get to the taxiway, but if you think about that, it might actually use up too much runway, or not too much runway, you spend too much time on the runway that way. So it lets it roll forward for a while, then towards the end it applies more braking to turn off the runway. And Andreas, what did you mention about brake wear?
Yeah, the brake wear, yeah, right. So, I mean, it's also for the brake wear, so you shouldn't ride the brakes, right? So you should apply a good amount of brakes when it's needed, right? So, and that's the reason why the brake to vacate is letting the aircraft go for a while, using the reverse if you use it, and then if you get closer, then it just brakes.
Yeah, it's also important to highlight here that Andreas mentioned reversers. The Airbus A380 only has 2 reversers, the middle engines, so number 2 and number 3, and BTV will automatically adjust for the amount of reverse you put in. So it will adjust because it knows, oh, it's decelerating faster than I expected because the reversers are on, so now I don't have to brake as hard.
Yeah. So it's really monitoring the deceleration rate and not just apply a certain amount of pressure on the brakes.
And as you might have seen, there was an orange message in the MCU saying enter destination data. These are the things we still have to work a bit on. It's like cleaning up these warnings that are not necessary because Mike had already filled in that information. So there's a few things we have to work on for sure. Actually, there's a lot we have to work on, but...
There you see also the VNAV working on descent, right? So it's not open descent, it's descent.
And yes, so for those that don't know VNAV much, the green dot next to the altitude is the target altitude that it wants to be on, or should be on for the correct profile, descent profile.
Right.
And on the speed tape.
And
on the left side you see the speed band, so it gives the VNAV some control in which to compensate without needing to change the thrust.
So yeah, again, we're speeding this up a little bit because it's not a lot of effort on the pilot side. Here's more monitoring, making sure the VNAV system is following that descent profile properly. It's aligning with all the waypoints and the altitude restrictions properly. But the pilot is more monitoring right now. And soon I think Mike will be turning on the ILS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we still have it enabled, so you now have the ILS diamonds on your PFD. You'll start seeing them align. He'll enable the approach mode soon enough as well. So that means that it will automatically align with the localizer and the altitude.
And the A380 has also, so there's a change in the flare. So if we're talking about the fly-by-wire system, so it has also been started to adapt the fly-by-wire system we have on the A320 for the A380. And for example, the flare mode in the A380 is basically kind of a direct law in comparison to the A320, where it's a so-called pitch attitude law. And that has already been changed. So the flare mode is now as it should be.
You can also see, sorry, just jumping in, you can also see that beyond the runway there's that blue line to the north. That's your go-around procedure that's fully implemented and will be activated if you execute a go-around.
And really briefly, I wanted to mention in the previous clip when the gear was dropped, you might have heard the really loud gear drag. And since the gear is huge, even the nose wheel, you hear so much bassy drag noise from that nose wheel and in the cabin from the main wheels.
So it's manual flight now. Cat 1, you see the Cat 1 indication. So before it was Cat 3 single because only one autopilot was engaged.
And I think you wanted to mention something about the callouts.
Yes. So currently they're all A320 callouts. I haven't had the chance to replace them with A380 ones. So yeah, you'll be hearing the familiar A320 voice, but it will be different on release.
On the left side on the FMA you see also now the BTV to be armed, and you will also see when on the runway when it engages it gets on the top and also with the white border.
And now you get to judge Mike's landing. Make sure on the YouTube video to comment and tell him how well he did. Because he's doing great, trust me.
400.
Yeah, that's a common mistake.
100 above.
That's quite funny when I did, so I had the chance to land the A380 in a certified full flight simulator, and it was hard for me to flare early enough, so it was a bit hard, you could say. It was still okay, and the same happened to me in the A380 now in the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you
40,
need to be prepared to flare
30,
earlier.
20, retard.
You're also a lot higher up compared to an A320. The first time I was flying this, I slammed it into the ground because I flared way too late.
That's a typical fault.
It's a beautiful landing from Mike there, though.
Yeah. So take into account he's not touching the brakes right now. This is all P2V. Look at which exit he's going to be at, like 15 knots, which is a good turning rate for an A380.
Yeah. Now you see really, so it's not going to brake so much. So you see it on the arrow. It's not so hard in braking, because we are still quite a time away, and now it begins to brake. See?
So yeah, it's the yellow arrow on the speed tape. That is,
so now it applied more brake pressure to decelerate, and there we go.
And I think we're about to hit 15 knots, 14 knots ground speed, which is the time that we'll be turning off the runway. And the next portion is really just taxiing to the gates, which we're going to accelerate. We're going to keep the video going just a little bit longer because we like to show you the final moments. You know, the full flight, start to finish, landing into Las Vegas. And of course, you have the beautiful scenery behind you of the strip and that you might have recognized. Sorry,
and the beautiful ONS also being displayed on the...
Yeah, ONS still being shown, so you can use it to taxi all the way back into your gate.
I don't think it's been mentioned yet, but that stands for Onboard Airport Navigation System.
Might be a good point. Does anyone have a question, maybe? Yeah.
You can just tell a question to us. We'll repeat it for the stream.
Well, thank you for the presentation, in which this is an exciting add-on. So the one question that I have is, let's say if I'm doing a 14-hour long-haul flight, in your add-on, will you support time compression?
So definitely, for sure, we want to do that. Even in the A320, we support time compression. There are some limitations. There are some limitations for that we need to have enough frames per second for the
autopilot to work
for
correctly.
the FMS to work properly.
Yeah.
And so if you go to a twice sim rate, for instance, you also need to make sure that your FPS stays high enough to have those calculations going. But otherwise, yes.
Thank you, guys. This looks amazing.
We're almost done, but maybe there's one more question.
Okay, one more very quickly, because I know we're running slightly over. Yes, sir.
Not to insult any of the other companies that are here, we're seeing a lot of the companies releasing their programs and items and add-ons right now with 2020 before 2024 comes out. Are you going to hold off releasing this till 2024 comes out to confirm that you're compatible with 24?
Yeah, so the question, if it wasn't entirely clear for everybody in the room, was are we going to release this for 2024? The goal is absolutely, right? And so the good thing that we've done is that we've been developing a lot in parallel. So we don't have access to 2024 to be safe. But we definitely want to support both platforms. And Katie, maybe you want to...
Oh, I was going to say, I think they also mentioned if we were going to wait until 2024 to launch rather than launching for 2020, we're going to definitely aim for the ability to run on 2020. And if it pushes over into 2024, then it's going to be released then.
Yeah.
So yeah, the question on release timelines, as mentioned before, we're all volunteers. We can't really push or force anybody in our team to finish something in a certain time frame because we're not getting paid, right? We're all doing this for free in our spare time. So that means that predicting the timeline for release is hard, but when we release, we want to release for 2020 and 2024. And I think we're shutting down.
Yeah.
Mike is turning off the lights. We're going to do one final shot of the outside. I know you're running in late a little bit, but we're going to steal the stage a little bit.
Let's go for it. Let this run to its course.
So there's the final sequence, and then I think we zoom out a little bit, and that's going to be the end of our video. And thank you very much for all of you to join us today. All the questions. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Come to our booth for the last couple of hours to see what happens in real life, and keep following us on Discord and all the social media.
And once again, you can go and fly the A380 at our booth.
And that's where you are, in the Rio.
Yep.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on stage. We're going to take a very, very quick break now. And in about literally 1 minute, we're going to have Laminar on stage who do the X-Plane franchise. But before I let that happen, can we pass one more round of applause for the FlyByWire team?